Chayton had always been known in his Lakota village as a calm and loyal man, someone who rarely spoke about his feelings but carried deep emotions inside him. He spent most of his days helping the elders, teaching younger boys how to ride, how to read the sky, and how to respect the land. But the people close to him knew there was a part of his heart he kept hidden. It was the part that belonged to someone who was no longer here. Years ago, a young traveling teacher named Annalise arrived in the village. She had planned to stay for only a few weeks, but something about the peace of the plains made her remain longer. She spent her days reading with the children, learning Lakota traditions, and speaking softly to Chayton whenever their paths crossed. Their connection was gentle, unspoken, and warm. But before he found the courage to tell her how he felt, she left. No goodbye. No explanation. She disappeared the same way storms disappear into the horizon suddenly and without warning. Chayton told himself for years that she must have returned to her old life, far from the quiet world of the plains. He convinced himself she had moved on. But in the late hours of the night, when he sat by the river where they once talked, the memory of her stayed close, like a shadow that refused to leave. He believed his soulmate was gone forever. One winter evening, the sky turned a heavy silver color, the kind that warned of a strong coming storm. The wind carried a cold that made even the horses restless. Chayton rode back toward the village after checking the traps near the far edge of the forest. Snow began to fall in gentle flakes, gathering on his shoulders and hair. He thought the road would be empty at this hour, but as his horse stepped over a small hill, he saw something strange. Two small figures walked slowly along the snow-covered path. They were holding hands, heads down, their steps uneven, as if they were exhausted. At first, he thought they might be lost children from a nearby settlement, but when he came closer, he felt a small jolt in his chest. The children were twin girls, thin, pale from the cold, and wearing coats too light for such harsh weather. Chayton slowed his horse and approached carefully, not wanting to frighten them. The twins lifted their heads at the sound of the hooves. Their big brown eyes widened when they saw him. For a moment, they simply stared, whispering something to each other that he couldn't hear. He stepped off his horse and walked toward them, lowering himself to one knee so he wouldn't seem too tall or threatening. "Are you both all right?" he asked gently. The girls didn't answer at first. Instead, they looked at each other again, as if silently asking who should speak. Finally, the braver one stepped forward. Her voice shook slightly. "Are you Chayton?" Hearing his name from a child he had never met startled him. "Yes," he replied slowly. "I am Chayton. How do you know me?" The girls glanced at each other again. Their eyes carried fear, sadness, but also a strange hope. The second girl stepped forward now. She held her sister's hand tight and said, "Mama told us to find you." Chayton felt the cold wind press against his back. He tried to keep his voice steady. "Who is your mother?" "Life." They both looked up at him, and their answer struck him like a bolt of lightning. "Mama said you are our daddy." For a long moment, Chayton could not breathe. His heart slammed against his ribs. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. He had no children. He had never held a child of his own blood. And yet these little girls stood before him, certain of their words. He finally managed to ask, "What is your mother's name?" The girls exchanged another glance before whispering. His stomach tightened. His vision blurred for a second. Annalise, the woman he believed was gone forever, the woman he had loved in silence, was the mother of these two girls. Twins. About 5 or 6 years old. The timing made sense, but his mind refused to accept it easily. He noticed their hands were trembling. Their faces were turning red from the cold. This was not the time for questions. He stood and gently placed his coat over their shoulders. "Come with me," he said softly. "You are safe now." He lifted both girls onto his horse, placing them in front of him so he could keep them warm. They leaned against him naturally, as if they knew they belonged there. As if they felt safe with him, the same way a child feels safe with a parent. When they reached the village, he took them to his family lodge. His mother, a kind and strong woman, quickly prepared warm blankets and hot soup. The twins ate quietly, watching Chaitin every few seconds as if afraid he might disappear. When they finished, he sat beside them near the fire. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked gently. The braver twin nodded. "Mama was sick," she said. "She tried to bring us here. She said this land was safe. She said you would take care of us." "Did she send you alone?" Chaitin asked, worry rising in his voice. "No," the other girl replied. "We traveled together. But a few days ago, she became too weak. She told us to walk the rest of the way. She said you were near. She said you would find us." His chest tightened painfully. He could almost see Annalise struggling, trying to reach him even when she had little strength left. The guilt he once carried returned, heavier than before. "What else did your mother tell you about me?" he whispered. The girls told him things that only Annalise could have shared, details of his old stories, the songs he once hummed by the river, the way he laughed quietly, the carving he made for her. There was no mistake. These girls were truly connected to him through her. But the thought that she might still be out there sick, alone, and possibly in danger, filled him with fear and determination. He looked at the twins, who were now leaning against each other, tired but calmer. "You are safe here," he said softly. "I will protect you, and I will find your mother." The girls smiled weakly. One reached out and held his hand, small fingers curling around his much larger one. She whispered, "Daddy, we knew you would come." The word hit him in a way nothing else ever had. Not like a shock, but like a piece of a puzzle sliding into place. Something inside him shifted. Something warm. Something new. Something long missing. That night, long after the twins fell asleep beside the fire, Chaitin sat awake. He watched their peaceful faces, their identical breaths, their small hands peeking out from the blankets. He felt a strange, powerful bond, a connection that didn't need explanations or proof. They were part of him. And somehow, he sensed that Annalise had known this all along. As snow continued to fall outside, Chaitin made a silent promise to himself, to the twins, and to the woman he once loved. He would not lose them. Not again. Not ever. The next morning came with soft sunlight shining through the lodge's small window. Chaitin barely slept, but he didn't feel tired. His mind was full of questions, worry, and a strong need to find Annalise. The twins woke slowly, rubbing their eyes, and when they saw him sitting nearby, they smiled with a kind of relief that made his chest warm. "Are we staying here forever?" the braver twin asked. Chaitin knelt beside them. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said softly. The girls exchanged a nervous look. The quieter one whispered, "What if Mama didn't make it?" Chaitin gently touched her shoulder. "I will look for her," he said. "I promise. I won't stop until I find her." He spoke with a calm voice, but inside, he felt a storm. The thought of Annalise alone, sick and struggling somewhere, made him feel a pain deeper than anything he had ever known. But he also felt hope. If the girls made it to his village, then Annalise must have been close. She wouldn't have sent them to him unless she believed he would find her. After making sure the twins had breakfast and warm clothes, Chaitin went outside to prepare his horse. His mother followed him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "They trust you already," she said. "Children do not give such trust easily." "They believe I am their father," he replied quietly. His mother studied his face. Chaitin looked toward the lodge where the twins now sat, watching him through the doorway. Something about their eyes, their small smiles, The way they held hands, it all felt strangely familiar. "Yes," he answered. "I think I do." His mother gave a small nod of understanding. "Then bring their mother home," she said. "Your family waits for you." Chayton rode out before the sun rose too high, following the path the twins had walked. The land stretched wide in front of him, snow-covered hills, frozen streams, and lonely roads where the winter wind sang along the tall grass. He asked every traveler he passed if they had seen a woman traveling with two young girls. Some had, but their answers pointed to different directions. Late in the afternoon, he reached a small homestead, a modest cabin with smoke rising from the chimney. A couple stepped outside when they heard his horse approach. They looked tired, but kind. "Are you Chayton?" the woman asked before he could speak. He felt his heart skip. "Yes," he said. "I'm looking for a woman named Annalise. She might have passed through here with two children." The man and woman exchanged a glance. The woman stepped forward with gentle eyes. "She came here," she said softly. "She was very weak. Almost too weak to stand." Chayton's breath caught. "She asked us if we knew the direction to the Lakota village," the woman continued. "She was determined to reach you." "Where is she now?" Chayton asked, almost afraid of the answer. The man pointed toward the west. "She left 2 days ago," he said. "She insisted she had to keep moving. We tried to convince her to stay and rest, but she said someone important was waiting for her." Chayton closed his eyes for a moment, trying to imagine her pushing through cold wind and snow with barely any strength. It hurt to picture, but it also filled him with admiration. She had fought for the twins. She had fought to reach him. He thanked the couple and continued riding, the urgency inside him growing stronger with every mile. As the day faded into evening, he stopped near a frozen creek, where he saw footprints, one set of adult steps, slow and uneven. The snow around them was disturbed, as if someone had fallen several times. His heart tightened. He followed the prints carefully until they led to a small town near the railway tracks. Lanterns glowed in the windows. Smoke curled up from chimneys. Horses were tied outside buildings. The place was quiet, peaceful in its own way. Chayton asked around, describing Annalise to anyone who would listen. Most people shook their heads, but finally, an older man pointed toward a boarding house at the end of the street. "She's there," he said, came in looking half frozen. The woman running the place almost dragged her inside. "Don't know how she made it this far." Chayton walked quickly toward the boarding house, snow crunching beneath his boots. Every step felt heavier than the last. His chest was tight with fear, hope, and a strange trembling he had never felt before. He pushed the door open. Warm air rushed out. The innkeeper, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked up from her desk. When she saw him, she nodded gently. "She's upstairs," she said softly. Second door on the left. Chayton climbed the creaking wooden stairs, each step echoing louder than the last. He stood at the door for a long moment, gathering the strength he needed. Then he knocked gently and opened it. The room was dim and quiet. A single lamp burned beside the bed, and on that bed, wrapped in blankets, lying weakly, but still breathing, was Annalise. She looked thinner than before, her hair messy, her face pale. But when she opened her eyes and saw him, they filled slowly with tears. "Chayton," she whispered, voice weak but filled with emotion. "I wasn't sure you'd ever know." He knelt beside her, his heart breaking and mending at the same time. "You should have told me," he said softly. "You should have stayed." She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was scared," she whispered. "I didn't know if you felt the same. And when I found out about the twins, I didn't know how to return without ruining your life." Chayton shook his head. "You never ruined anything," he said. "I only regret not telling you how much you meant to me back then." She reached for his hand with trembling fingers. He held her gently, feeling how fragile she had become. "The girls," Annalise whispered. "Did they reach you?" "They did," he said with a small smile. "They are safe, they are warm, and they are waiting for you." A soft breath of relief escaped her lips. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "I wanted to bring them home," she said. "Back to the only place that ever felt peaceful." "You will," Chayton replied firmly. "We'll go back together." It took 2 days for Annalise to gain enough strength to travel. Chayton stayed with her the whole time, helping her eat, helping her sit up, making sure she never felt alone again. In those quiet hours, they talked about the past, each of them admitting how they carried the same feelings, the same silence, the same regrets. When they finally returned to the village, snow was still falling lightly. The twins ran toward their mother the moment they saw her. "Mama!" they cried, tears streaming down their faces. Annalise fell to her knees and held them tightly, crying softly into their hair. Chayton stood beside them, watching the reunion with a heart so full he thought it might burst. The girls hugged him next, small arms wrapping around his waist as they whispered, "Daddy, you found Mama." He placed his hands gently on their heads. "We're a family now," he said quietly, "and we stay together." As days passed, Annalise recovered slowly. The village welcomed her with warmth, remembering her kindness from years ago. The twins learned Lakota songs, played with other children, and followed Chayton everywhere he went. And every evening, the 4 of them sat by the fire, sharing stories and sewing their lives into one thread. Chayton carved a wooden charm shaped like 2 small feathers, one for each twin. He hung them on thin strings and placed them around the girls' necks. They touched the carvings with wide smiles. "Does this mean you are really our daddy now?" the braver twin asked. Chayton looked at them, then at Annalise, whose eyes sparkled softly. "Yes," he said with warmth in his voice. "I am your father, and I'm not going anywhere." The twins hugged him tightly, their joy filling the small lodge with light. Annalise watched, her heart calm for the first time in years. She reached out and took Chayton's hand, and he held it with a quiet promise. The family he believed he would never have had finally returned to him, not through fate alone, but through courage, love, and 2 small girls who never stopped believing. And as snowflakes drifted slowly outside, Chayton realized his soulmate had never been lost. She had simply found her way back to him in the most unexpected way,